Good morning, Nigeria. Today we shall review 3 years of the Tinubu administration's reforms in agriculture and food security.
Three years into the Tinubu administration, agriculture has been one of the government's biggest priorities.
Now, from declaring a state of emergency on food security to expanding support for farmers, the administration rolled out a series of reforms aimed at boosting local food production as well as reducing Nigeria's dependence on food imports.
Key achievements include increased agricultural funding, expanded access to fertilizers and improved seeds, support for dry season farming, irrigation development, and a nationwide mechanization program involving tractors, harvesters, and modern farming equipment.
Absolutely, and there's so much more that the administration has done, including strengthening agricultural credit schemes, promoting the cultivation of staple food crops such as rice, maize, wheat, cassava, and sorghum.
The country also launched livestock sector reforms, established agricultural service centers, and secured major international partnerships, including a landmark agricultural cooperation agreement with Brazil.
And there were efforts also to improve security in farming communities, and that enabled more farmers to return to their fields. But while investment in technology and extension services are helping improve productivity across the sector.
While challenges remain, particularly around food affordability, the administration points to increased food production, growing mechanization, expanded farmer support programs, improved agricultural investment, and gradual easing of food inflation.
Well, just to say that these are the data we got. Of course, we're still going to analyze, all the data.
When it gets to our right.
Exactly. But all of this serve as evidence that, reforms are beginning to deliver results. And the focus now is on sustaining the momentum and also ensuring that the gains translate into affordable food, stronger food security, and most importantly, long-term prosperity for all Nigerians.
Rightly said, Claire. So this morning we are discussing 3 years of Tinubu's administration, reforms in agriculture and food security. Thanks for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria. I am Ademola Adeoye.
And I'm Claire Adelabu Abdulrazak. I also joined Demola to welcome you to the program this Wednesday. We're live on the network service of the NTA. Once again, let me thank you for being with us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. And just before I introduced our background reports to tell you, this is a very important topic, and we will have all our contact numbers displayed on the screen for you to join us in the conversation, sending in your comments, your questions, your suggestions via WhatsApp. You can also follow us on Facebook or join us. I think we're streaming on YouTube. So our topic this morning will be reviewing 3 years of President Bola Tinubu's administration's milestone in the agri sector. Thomas Sekwetere will bring us a background report.
The Tinubu administration's first 3 years have been marked by a series of interventions aimed at boosting agricultural production, strengthening food security, and reducing dependence on food imports. From the declaration of a state of emergency on food security to dry season farming initiatives, input distribution, agricultural mechanization, and agro-industrial development, government maintains that significant foundations have been laid for a more resilient agricultural sector. However, persistent challenges including food inflation, insecurity, climate change, and high production costs continue to test the effectiveness of these policies. The key question remains whether the interventions have translated into tangible improvement in food affordability and food security for ordinary Nigerians. As the administration enters its fourth year, stakeholders agree that sustained investment improved security, greater access to farm inputs, and stronger value chains will be critical to achieving the goals of food sufficiency and agricultural transformation. Now, what lessons have been learned from the past 3 years, and how can they shape future agricultural policies? Looking ahead, what should be the priority areas of government, private sector operators, and development partners to ensure sustainable food security and agricultural transformation? These and other critical issues will form the focus of discussion this morning as guests on Good Morning Nigeria assess 3 years of Tinubu's administration in agriculture and food security.
Thank you very much, Thomas, for that background report and for the issues that you have raised in that your report. And I'm sure that our guests, they listened to those issues you have raised, and plus all the ones that we have here, they will be able to, answer them. Well, joining us now in the studio is our regular, the Honorable Minister of State, Agriculture and Food Security, Dr. Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi. Thank you so much for coming again. Good to see you.
Thank you very much, Damola, for having me. Claire, yes, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
Year, actually.
No, we have.
Yeah,
I've been here.
He's been
this
here,
year.
yes.
Yeah, I've been here more than 3 times.
This year?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, so you're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Also, a regular, he always here, talking about Professor Akeem Abolade Oyeride, who is the Dean Faculty of Agriculture, University of Abuja. Prof. Good to see you again.
Good morning, Demola and Claire. It's nice being on set with the minister.
Thank God it's just one prof we have. Oh, we have two. One prof.
No, one prof.
One prof. But he's also the dean. So the conversation is going to be very robust. But let me also welcome, I don't know, I'm sure it's for the first time, sir, Engineer Shehu Bello, MNI. I need to add your MNI for you.
Thank you very much.
National Publicity Secretary of All Farmers Association of Nigeria, AFAN. He's also a former director, Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. We'd like to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much for your introduction.
And gentlemen, as tradition would always have it on Good Morning Nigeria, would allow the Honourable Minister to fill us in on what has been happening. We'll do that for 20 minutes, and then we'll now escalate the conversation. So we'd like to start with the Honourable Minister, and Demola, permit me. I'd like to start by asking. I want to congratulate you because researching 3 years of this administration in agriculture, we've seen quite impressive numbers, especially in terms of GDP growth, in terms of your turnover, and in terms of also your rollouts. There are very impressive numbers. But I'd like to ask, in 3 years, what are the 3 major targets that this administration set out, and how far have you achieved?
Thank you very much, and good morning, Nigerians. 3 years, very fantastic. At the beginning of these 3 years, of course, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came on the heels of a serious food crisis, and he immediately said, I will declare a state of emergency, and he declared a state of emergency in July 13th. Now, thereafter, by August, of course, ministers came on board, and we know the ministry to be Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, and they said no, Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. This is to signpost the fact that food security is the core focus of his administration. And of course, as he unveiled the, 7-point agenda, the renewed hope agenda, it became very clear that food security was in the front burner. Rightly so, because the Nigerian Constitution said the welfare and security of citizens is the primary purpose of governance. And when you look at welfare, that is where you situate the food security situation. So for us, coming on board as ministers of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, we had our hand full. So at the outset, what we did was to say, okay, we are having a food situation. crisis, what do we do? If you define food security as availability of food, accessibility of food, affordability, and the right nutritional content on a sustainable basis, then we should be able to understand that there is a clear path to attaining that strategy. So all we did was to say, okay, we're going to ramp up production. To ramp up production means that you must have a system that will continuously produce food. So what we did as a ministry was to begin with a program we made on ground that was more or less food dragging. That's the National Agricultural Growth Scheme, Agro Pocket Project, which was an African Development Bank intervention. So 2023 farming season, that is dry season, we started the massive wheat production. Okay. And for that year alone, we were able to motivate the system and promote the production to the extent that we had more than 500,000 tons of wheat produced. Rice also was supported in that program. Maize was supported. Cassava was supported. So realizing this, we also declared that henceforth, the Federal Republic of Nigeria will go into all year-round farming as a policy, which means we're going to take advantage of the various weather pattern in the country, beginning from the southern parts where you have rain starting early, to the middle where you have the most bulk of the Guinea savanna, to the Sahelian area that is drier. And so we believe irrigation farming has to come on board, and that was part of the promotion of the NAC's AP program. Now, one other challenge we saw was clearly on the heels of the implementation of the Anko Boras program. Nigerians also realized that we are having a situation where people who call themselves farmers are not the genuine farmers. So when you put in too much resources and then these resources are diverted to other sector, you will not see the result. So one of the things we also did was to make sure, starting with the NAC's AP, we are focusing on the real farmers. And the only way we can do that is to identify the various farming groups and associations. So this time around, we said as part of our stakeholder strategy, AFAN and all other various producers association must be part of everything we are doing. And there is no serious meeting we will hold where AFAN is not invited. And then we also have the various commodity associations like the cassava, like the rice, tomato, onions, and the like. So having galvanized the system, we then begin to break it down into taking first the issue of input supply and the various agricultural programs in the various departments. We are now asked to begin to focus on putting our money where our mouth is. What that means is that what is our food security crops? Because you cannot just, agriculture is so huge and you can count more than 200 various commodities you can start producing. If you take horticulture alone, you can have more than 100. And if you take tree crops, the same thing. So what we said is, look, what are the major food Nigerians consume? From the north to the south. So we sat down and did an exercise, and we broke our food security crops into tiers. Tier 1 crops are those crops that we know from Lagos to Maiduguri everybody consumes. Here we are talking about wheat-based food, we are talking about rice, we are talking about cassava, we are talking about beans, okay? And we are talking about maize, yam, potato, and the like, onion, tomato, and the like. So what that means also is that we are now focusing our attention mostly on this. Now, it then gave us the opportunity to say, okay, we have other agencies. The National Agricultural Development Fund was established as an intervention agency. Now, everything NADF is doing is focusing on these crops. Unlike before, where we would just put the money everywhere and then it's thinly spread on the ground. Now, this is not to say that other commodities are not good or they are not important. They are. But
when you say, sorry to interject, when you say you're focusing on these crops, what exactly? Give us content.
In essence, in terms of promotion, for example, when you are going to produce input, that farmers are going to benefit from. You are focusing on how these commodities are going to be produced in mass, because they represent the major food that people take. Remember, we are focusing on food security. Now, and we are also taking note of the various zones. I will give you an example. When we say tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, for example, things like Bambara Nut. There are places where Bambara Nut, for example, is also a delicacy that helps food security. Cocoyam. If you go to the southeast, for example, many people may not know this. Cocoyam is part of the food base. Yes. Even when they are doing soup in the southeast.
It's cocoyam.
So we also realize that. So when it comes to promoting certain food crops in the southeast, for example, that is a major focus. And I think the National Root Crop Research Institute that has mandate on that is actually doing so much on that. Now, remember, there was also a yam program that we are doing in conjunction with IITA. And in focusing on yam, we decided seed, for example, is a major problem. And so the seed production system for yam is being promoted along with IITA in terms of what we are doing. So in essence, what I'm saying is that having realized that we do not have all the resources to attend to all the crops, then we need to focus on those ones that makes the most impact on the food security agenda of our citizens. Now, you remember tomato and onions. Most times when you go to the market and, you know, the owners of the house come back and say, Megida, Inai, tomato is now this, onion is now this. Immediately the prices go up. Go and check the economy. Many other things will start going up. So having realized that, we said, well, these are inflation-sensitive crops. So for that reason, we decided to focus also on them. And the first thing we did was, at a point we came on board, Tuta Absoluta was devastating tomato. So we called on the National Horticultural Research Institute and told them you must focus your attention on how to help farmers to maintain what they have while taking care of this disease condition. At the same time, also start the breeding program for resistant varieties. And I think as at last year, there was a major release of about 3 or so commodity varieties of tomato that are resistant to Tuta Absoluta. Now, in terms of onion, the challenge we had was onion became very expensive in 2023. And the Producers Marketers Association visited us and told us what the problem is. When we investigated, it became obvious that because of the lack of seed, a member of their association went and brought in spring onions, and it was spread all over. And so they were not able to get the kind of onions they were looking at. That also we called on NIHOT, and NIHOT together with the association went into producing seed. Now you can see that has stabilized. So what I'm saying in essence is that our policies and strategies are hinged on how do you help our citizens to make the most of the situation. But remember also, just like your background report said, most of the things we are doing, if they are effective, they will also be challenged by the general macroeconomic situation. And I think these are part of the challenges that we are dealing with. At a point, we're able to bring down the food price. Now, if you say the price are shaking, it's simply that we are getting into lean period, but most importantly also that the general macroeconomic condition is affecting the affordability factor of our citizens, which has to do with the general world economic situation. The current wars and all the like is affecting the logistic and supply chain that also affect agricultural products. So, but be that as it may, given the fact that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu also realizes we need to look inwards. So based on the Nigerian force policy, we have also been identifying the various capabilities in country in terms of people who have the capacity to support what we are doing. And we also realize when you look at the input supply system, one of the challenges has been that even when farmers go to buy the inputs, are the inputs saying what they are saying? Are they correct? So to support all of this, we also came up with the soil health scheme. And this is the first major intervention, an original intervention of the Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration, because we realized it is the soil that you go to plant. The health of the soil determines whatever you've planted we experience. So arising from this, we've started implementing the National Farmer Soil Health Scheme and also the Nigerian Soil Information System. What this means is that we are now targeting how farmers in their 1 hectare can get advisory that will tell them the best crop that they can plant there. But at the same time, our fertilizer blenders will now be advised on what we call either crop specific or location specific, fertilizer blends. So all of this is happening now. And these are part of the changes we are bringing into the agricultural landscape of our country.
I don't know
now,
if the
just
mother,
before, let me land before you so that
I'm just waiting for you to land. So
now, to ensure that whatever we are doing is not just done blindly, we have annual performance survey that is being conducted by the National Agricultural Extension Research Liaison Services that is based in Ahmadu Bello University, one of the research institutes under the aegis of the Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria. Now, what that means is that they are able to go annually to tell us what the situation is. And I think some of the numbers you said you are talking about is as a result of these, surveys that we're doing to tell us what exactly is the problem. For example, when we had the challenge of flooding in 2023, 2024, it became very obvious that we need to now start looking at drought-tolerant and flood-resistant varieties, so that even when the water recedes, the crops are able to withstand. And I think in 2024, the report highlighted such kind of development that is seen, despite the fact that more than 110 hectares, 1,000 hectares of farm areas were impacted negatively. But those who use the improved varieties are able to get a better, what do they call it? So there is quite a lot that is being done, and I must say that we are really transforming the agriculture.
And you have told us
system.
quite a lot that government is doing.
Yeah.
You're very, very elaborate about it. But we have to highlight, the Renew Hope agenda on agriculture and food security. That has to be in agricultural mechanization, post-harvest loss reduction, emergency food interventions and long-term self-sufficiency, regional and development value chain, and many others like that. But let's now begin to pick them one after the other. The first on the mechanization. The Renewed Hope Agricultural Mechanization Program rolled out about 2,000 tractors, if I'm correct, and 9,000, is it 9,000?
9,000
and 22 tools, something, after 3 years. After 3 years, the percentage of targeted farmers have actually, tell us the percentage of targeted farmers that actually assess this equipment, and what's the maintenance and ownership model to ensure sustainability of this?
All right. This thing was rolled out last year when the president launched it. Now, the difference here is that before, with this tractor, we will have just been busy in the ministry based on patronage, giving this person 2, giving that person 4, giving that. This time around, we are changing the business model. The model is not based on patronage. It's now based on value that these tractors have to bring to our farming population. So the Bank of Agriculture is anchoring this. Now, what has been done is we have 4 categories of people who will be benefiting. First, women in agriculture, youth in agriculture, then institutions, and then we now have private, farmers and companies and the like. Now, what we have done here is to say that, okay, we are going to have mechanization service centers that are being mapped across the clusters of production. So, the first 200 tractors out of the 2,000 is going to go to those who will be able to buy outright. And that was what we kickstarted in Sheda about 3 months ago when we went there, and then the women in agricultural mechanization were part of the beneficiaries and some other specific people. And I think even in your, what did they call it, in your report, I saw the young lady from the Women in Agriculture Mechanization who was driving to test run the tractor on the day we launched it. So that component is there. Then there is the component that is targeting youth who are interested in taking this, assessing some of the production mechanization service centers in the various clusters, so that farmers who will not be able to afford the tractor outright purchase will be able to access the service. Now, each of these tractors is equipped with, they are working with Heifer Nigeria to have a monitoring center where for every tractor there is a maintenance schedule. The moment you stubbornly refuse to accept the maintenance schedule, the tractor will stop because it's an asset and we don't want it to go bad. The 9,000 various equipments you talk about are including spare parts. And we have 12 maintenance vehicles that have also been brought along with it, so that anywhere your tractor is, that maintenance vehicle, outdoor maintenance vehicle, can assess you and help you to get these things by. This is in the works now. So, and I cannot tell you here exactly what level they have reached, but I know we've kickstarted that when we rolled it out in Cheddar. Now, the idea is as they sell out these tractors, okay, where they need to sell, because there is a funding mechanism with the bank, then they will be able to provide a service to the various farmers across the various clusters. And I think the bank also approached the National Assembly, asking that each member of the National Assembly can also procure one or two for use in their various constituencies. But the whole idea is that there will be a private sector arrangement that will enable the utilization and maintenance of these tractors in those various constituencies. So what we are doing this time around is to guarantee access. Because most farmers, it is the access to the mechanization service that is the key issue. And you know, tractors...
So what percentage of farmers have
well, the target is, right, if you look at it, we are targeting more than 1 million farmers annually, if all of it is deployed. But I don't know the percentage of deployment now, because it's still going on now as we speak. Okay. Especially targeting the beginning and onset of the, you know, rainy season.
I have a sort of questions before we bring in our other guests. Demola has, you know, started with mechanization, and I know that one wisdom behind investment in mechanization is that over time it helps to reduce production costs. With the huge investment in tractors, 2,000 you said, and of course the very, very spot-on, you know, deployment, one will wonder why farmers now, you know, still report high production costs. That's one. Then the other question is on the food security. Very impressive data, of course, at the macroeconomic level. From what we have, even from the Chamber of Commerce, the sector was able to meet, you know, the World Bank's forecast growth rate. You were also able to meet your turnover, projected turnover and all that. But these are very impressive. But there seems to be a disconnect between these indicators at the macro level and, you know, what we're having in reality in the marketplace. So why is that?
All right, let me say this. You see, Nigeria still suffers from data issues. And it's one of the challenges we are also trying to tackle as a ministry. And I will tell you, most times when these data are brought, it's based on estimation. And what we have said now is that as we produce across the various states, together with the state, we are working on a new national agricultural data system that will enable us to have those primary data as they are happening, real-time online, so that over time we can see what is happening. And when I said the annual performance survey, this is a survey that goes to the field, all the geopolitical zones, to collect real-time data. And that is where we are now able to see crops that are increasing, and that was why we can report also that there were marginal production increases because of the interventions we are doing. Now, if these things are not properly captured, you may not see the reality. But it's one thing you have this production, figures, while it's another thing when you get to the market, because the drivers of pricing in the market are external to the agricultural sector. Transportation cost. You may go to a place and buy a produce expensive, cheap, but the cost of transportation may almost double the price of what you have purchased.
But isn't that why a state of emergency was declared?
Yes, and even this is being tackled. Now, let me also bring this to your attention. Remember, as our producers and marketers bring their products across the road corridor, the issue of extortion was also an issue. And this was the subject of a massive debate in the Federal Executive Council, in which President Bola Ahmed Tinubu directed a committee be set up under the chairmanship of Senator Abubakar Kyari, the Honorable Minister of Agriculture. And in that report that the committee worked on, we realized that some of these extortions that happens on the road is without the knowledge of the main principle of the various security formations. So in collaboration with the National Security Advisor, this issue was tackled head on. And I must report that there is a downgrade in the number of such kind of distortions. Now, alongside this also, some of these distortions or some of these extortions is said to be in the name of collecting tax. So with the new tax regime, that also is being addressed head on.
So we are expecting to
see... To me, what I can say is that government is aware of some of these areas of high cost and they are being tackled. But then, let's also ask this question. What is the situation in terms of the market? In terms of the market dynamics? How people keep produce, how they take it to market, and how they fix the pricing. Who controls that? It's outside government. So, and there is one thing with our marketers. They know the dynamics. And as we speak today, this is, we're in June. Now we are getting into the lean period. June, July, August. All represent lean period because what has been produced and harvested is now almost getting to the, what do they call it? And usually, globally, most period in the production cycle around this time, everywhere there is distress. And that is where we are saying that we need to go into all year-round farming. And if you go to where production is taking place, some people are harvesting rice right now, where they have gone into production. So these are the issues, these are areas where we are expecting to cushion the effect.
Okay,
Right.
Please. In terms of deployment of mechanization, you talked about women, you talked about youths.
Yeah.
Are these part of the large-scale commercial farmers? Because at the beginning of this reform, the government said, look, the smallholder farmers are the people that we're going to use to drive these reforms.
Yes.
So are these smallholder farmers also integrated into this mechanization process?
Absolutely. You see, the smallholder farmers have half hectare, 1 hectare, 2 hectares. Now, how can they afford to now keep a tractor? But what they need is access. And that's why I told you the model we are creating now is to guarantee access. And remember also, that because of the whole of government approach that the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration is focusing on, we have relationship that we are building along with the state governors. And that's why the former governor of Niger State, for example, has massively gone into also producing tractors, harvesters, and the like in his state. And if you remember, the president was there when he launched the 300. Now, he just released it to all the local governments. I came back from Salah. Just before I left, my local government chairman said, we've received our tractor, we want to flag off our dry season. This was done on Saturday. So what I'm saying in essence is that access is bringing it closer to the people who are going to produce. Now we've mapped the various production clusters, and as we are giving you these tractors through the Bank of Agriculture, your production cluster must be known. And we will know where you are going to be producing, because the control center that Heifer Nigeria Limited is going to be managing for these tractors will put you on the various GPS so that they will know where you are producing, how much hectare you are doing, and all those things. So we are not taking it for granted that we'll just give you, you just go and keep it, and then No, we are interested in making sure that these things are available to farmers right on the ground. If I want my half hectare to be plowed, the moment it is plowed, I don't have any need for the tractor. I go into my production. Now, remember also, harvesting. When you have, some of the farmers are going into cooperatives, which is another layer that we are driving, a renewed hope cooperative reform and revamp program, to ensure that farmers will now have the economy of scale of aggregating themselves to produce as if they are large commercial farmers, but yet they are small producers.
All right,
so these are the strategies
Honorable
that we
Minister.
are looking at.
Let's just pause you there so that you can rest. Let's bring in other...
No, you can continue for all I know, because you see, we are saying what we have done.
Yes, what you have done, but we need to also have, like the representative of the farmers, to actually to verify whether what you are saying is right or wrong. So let's bring in Engineer Bello now so that he can tell us, as the average small farm holder, for instance, in Kaduna, Benue, Ogun, or even in Lagos, actually seeing a tractor or harvester from the 2,000 unit that government mentioned, and what impact has it had?
Thank you very much. I must thank the Honourable Minister and the Ministry to the Honourable Minister for the collaboration between AFAN and the government. To the question of the tractors, whether it has got to our farmers at the state level, it's still work in progress, because we met the BOA, which Minister have alluded to, that the BOA is the one handling the issue of acquisition and maintenance of those tractors. And what we came out with from our interaction with the BOA is that we have to go and put ourselves together, in the sense that when we put ourselves together, we must be able to deposit, I think, about 30% of the cost of acquiring that tractor. So if we deposit 30%, then the 70% will be paid over, I think, 3 years period. So that is the process we are on now. But our thinking is that because we may have to align with some of these service providers, which were one of the people the minister said will have access to those tractors, so that he puts down the company puts down the 30%, where our farmers, just as we've said, they are smallholder farmers. If you have 1 hectare, you just go to your service provider, he clears for you, you pay. In fact, we are not even looking for companies that will demand for payment either before the servicing. No, we are looking for companies that we may even have to pay with produce at the end of the harvest period, because that is the one we find that it will be easier for our farmers to handle. But we take responsibility of identifying those farmers and standing with them and assuring the service providers that at the end of the harvest, they will actually deliver by either giving you produce, or they will sell the produce and pay you for the mechanization services. And the BOA is also in this, because the BOA also said they are going to have what we call a buy of last resort. I mean, guarantee minimum price for this year. That is, ab initio, you are going to farming, you know how much you are sending a bag of maize, rice, cassava, and soybeans, so that you can do your calculation based on your input, cost of mechanization input, agro input, your labor, and stuff like that. So, because we said you are able to capture this, you may end up at harvest, you don't even have anything to pay the mechanization provider. That's why the BOA is coming in to say, okay, whatever happens at this price, we are ready to take the produce off you. So with this, we think the mechanization services will go down to the small-scale farmers.
Okay, I think sometime back I listened to you, to an interview you granted, and you talked about, in fact, you praised glowingly, the achievement, made in the agri sector. In fact, you did say that, just to use your words, that it's actually trickling down, to the grassroots. But you raised an issue, if I remember correctly, about gap between implementation and policy. And I'm just wondering if your members not just members of the oil farmers, all farmers, both smallholders. Do you have input into these policies that are, ultimately designed to benefit your members? Do you have input?
Yeah, definitely we do have input, because each time, whether there's a validation of an input, we'll be invited to attend the validation. If there are need for us to make contribution at the appropriate level, they invite AFAN to also make their own contribution, and we tell them these are the things. This one can work with our farmers. This one we need to jig it a little bit this way, that way. And I think the essence of our collaboration with the minister is that they know we are going to be the beneficiary of the policies as far as production is concerned. So ab initio, we have been taking along.
But you talked about gap between implementation.
Yes, the gap mostly is in terms of funding. You cannot really implement. You can't implement a policy if you don't have the appropriate funding. It is not as if the funding is not there, but trying to even assess the funding is the problem. For example, like he said, during the Anchors Borrowers program, the banks are relying on the community associations to make their farmers to be credit worthy. That is, if you are giving credit, they have an assurance that you are going to pay. And eventually, for one reason or the other, I think not all the farmers that got the credit were actually genuine. Not all of them were involved. So to pay back this credit became a problem. That is why you find the gap now in between implementation and policies, because the BOE now is insisting that they will not have anything to do with funding farmers directly. That the best they can do is for an aggregator or an off-taker to approach the BOE with his security to borrow money. When he borrows money, they will now map the smallholder farmers to either an aggregator or an off-taker, so that the off-taker can now provide input.
Does it make it cumbersome for farmers?
I think we need to continue educating these farmers, because honestly, our farmers believe that anything coming from government is just free money. And I do not see how you are going to sustain agriculture with this type of mentality. In other countries, where you hear that farmers commit suicide, you know why they commit suicide? It's very shameful for you to take a loan and not be able to pay back. It wasn't your money. They gave you money. You are not hardworking enough for you to be able to pay back. So people in the neighborhood will be making jest of you, and you cannot stand that. That's why you find them committing suicide. Our Nigerian farmer will not commit suicide. Say, let them do whatever they want to do. What is it? She is government. That is the difference.
All right, Prof. Let's bring Prof in now. I mean, that's Nigerian mentality that we need to rejig. I mean, there needs to be a shift in that kind of thought. Let's bring in Prof. now, Professor Oyerinde. We're looking at this issue of the policy and implementation. What model do you think is most viable, for government to be able to achieve this? As a professor.
Okay. Basically, I will start by appreciating the ministry, because for the first time, the Honorable Minister did not talk about the plant health departments. Because this is the first time that we're having a whole department standing for plant health. Apart from the soil health, the major problem we have in our post-harvest losses, which has reduced now, because as at 2013 it was over 70%, but now is within 35-40%, which is a massive improvement. So that department was created, and it gave ownership. I'm an entomologist, I'm a professor of entomology, so it gave us a sense of belonging. And I remember when we had the infestation in Kano for the onion, the ministry quickly swung into action. The ministry gave intervention to the farmers in Kano. That was led by Nigerian plant, the president of Nigerian Plant Protection Society, which I'm a fellow of the society as well. So, because the major thing we've been having is that people at the down, we have the top-bottom approach. At the bottom doesn't feel the intervention of the government until when we have this renewed hope agenda. Because I remember when that problem happened, the president called me, this is the problem. I said, oh, please, let's go to the ministry. So when the ministry, we met the director of plant health, and she quickly swung into action with the minister, and they had intervention for the farmer. What affects farmer most is when you have planted your crop and you are seeing your crop dying. The farmer doesn't know how to assess or how to test, how to identify the causative organism or the insect or its environmental. So there's now a synergy between the ministry and some of this our society that gives real-time information to the ministry on what solution. And these are home-based solution. In some governments before, when we have total absolute problem, I remember I was the secretary of Entomological Society of Nigeria. We wrote to the then minister that will you go and bring experts, technicians from Kenya, from India to come and solve Nigerian problem when you have experts within the country. The then minister wrote an apology letter to us, and the problem was solved by Nigerian experts. So, but the present government use experts within the country, which is a plus. It means we are not exporting, we are not looking for paying to have experts when we have people within the country that can solve our problem.
Of course, that's why the turnover was able to meet their turnover.
So, that reduced the cost of production, and with that, there's no wastage. And aside that, the policy we are talking about, most of the time when they want to develop policy, some of these associations, AFAN, and a host of our Greek group, there's always invitation. You are part of doing this. So that you take ownership of whatsoever policy is being produced. And the first time again, within this renewal agenda, that the Ministry of Agric is working on having a new curriculum for agricultural training in Nigeria. It has never happened. I remember when CCMAS came up, plant protection, crop protection, and environmental protection was omitted from the agri curriculum. And I was on set here when I raised it that we cannot accept such a curriculum, because you cannot talk about crop, you cannot talk about plants without talking about their health. And fortunately, the Ministry of Agric, interacting with other ministry, education and others, are now doing a full-fledged curriculum that will be 70% practical based. Agric is not theoretical. And if you train an agriculturist on theory basis, you failed. And that's why whenever I teach agripreneurship for over close to 20 years now, I usually tell the students, that's the last final course that is general. I usually tell them that what I used to get my appointment from the first day up to today is beekeeping. Is having an experience. I remember Professor Salako said, Akin, when I saw your CV, I don't know you from anywhere. But when I saw that you can keep bees, you can face bees, that's why I gave you appointment as an assistant lecturer then. So I usually tell those children that this is I'm a living example. And I've traveled to all continents of the world on the verge of this agriculture. So I have hope that most of you lost being a medical doctor. Now you are in the face of agri. 2 days ago, 5 of them won this grant for agribusiness by Ministry of Budget and Planning. 5 of them won that grant based on their agribusiness that they are doing. So the policy that we are talking about, that the Renew Hope is running, is basically involving stakeholders. The tractorization, I stay in Sheda, so I see the tractor, I see the activity that is happening in that place. I've been staying in Sheda for over 13 years. So, because I love staying with the farmers. And you see now that farmers they are even forming themselves into clusters. You know, as an individual, you don't have money to get a tractor, you form a cluster, you get to the ministry, you get to a Bank of Agriculture. As a cluster, you have enough fund to even procure this tractor. I know some of those groups that have procured it. And with that, there is what usually causes problem in tractor operation is maintenance. When you have it, another agricultural implement. When you don't have how you maintain it, you use it for the first two, after the third season, it goes off. But this one being packaged to have maintenance has solved the problem of the farmer. The second phase, which I believe that the government will soon go into, you know, when you talk about mechanization, is more than tractorization. But majority of people, when they talk about mechanization, usually focus too much on tractorization. Tractor is to produce. When tractor produce, the only thing that can make farmer to have high return on investment is to have a chain where you can add value to what you are producing.
Value addition.
And that's why the Afan man said, you now have cluster, you now have anchor that picks that commodity. If a farmer is sure that I have people that will buy my commodity, farmer will produce more. Because I remember when we have a cassava promotion some time ago in one government, and nearly everybody went to go and plant cassava. After planting, nobody to buy it. Some of them did not even go and harvest, because the cost of harvesting is not up to the money that. So, whereas what the government is supposed to do then is to have you create a layer within the value chain where you now have processor. As those ones are like what they are doing now, the people that are producing know that there are anchor that will pick those commodities. And when the anchor pick the commodity, you know what it usually do? It usually lead to sustainability of that commodity. The rain-fed agriculture, you have so many mammoth of this thing coming up now. And you have so many foreign companies coming to mop. They will mop in Nigeria and take it to their country, export from their country, and keep claiming it's their country products. But this new arrangement where you have anchor now, the anchors are Nigerian. And with that, the contribution to our GDP will be so high because we are no more exporting what we have competitive advantage and what we have comparative advantage to do.
This is fantastic.
So the best we can do is, I usually tell people that Nigeria is the biggest market in Africa. We are 1/3 of Africa in terms of population. We are 1/3 of Africa in terms of resources, whether agricultural resources, whether mineral resources. In terms of water, which we call the blue economy, we have 1/3 of Africa resources. So why are we not capitalizing? Everybody, you see Chinese, you see other Indian, everybody, Lebanese, all of them coming into Nigeria because they know we have over 200 million people as a market.
Prof.
So if we produce for this large, huge amount of people, it means we will take over the economy of West Africa and in the long run, take over the economy of Africa.
Of course, that's the essence. That's why we're having a African continental free trade area. So yes, so that we'll go there and dominate. But I know that the goal of every reform, especially agric reform, is to ensure that food is available on the table and at affordable prices. And I like that you mentioned plant health. Some time ago, we were told that several birds or diseases attacked ginger. And that was why the price of ginger skyrocketed. The price of ginger has not come down. You buy three of ginger.
Actually, it came down and it's gone up again.
It never did, because you buy 4, you buy ginger. Yes.
There was a very serious ginger blight attack in 2024.
Yes.
It started 2023, 2024.
Yeah.
Now, we immediately intervened. And based on that intervention, it was realized that it was a fungi that actually affected it. And the solution to that is being produced. But what happened is this. The moment you have such kind of massive attack, what you need to do is to change strategy. So at the first year, what we did, based on advice of plant protection experts, is to say that farmers in that particular area have to go off that commodity for 1 year, which they did. And I think the government intervened. We produced the sum of 2 billion as intervention, along with Kaduna State government intervention. And farmers in those areas were supported to produce other commodities in that particular area. That is to change the, what did they call it, the host that the infective agent is going to rely on. So when you do that, it will take you time again before you get into recovery. Now, remember, you now have to produce new rhizomes that will use as planting materials to begin to rebuild. And within this period, it means there is lean availability. So the cost. Remember, one of the things he said earlier, which, like he said, he hoped the ministry is already doing that, because, for example, that is why we are having the special agro-processing zone programs. And all the states of the federation have keyed into it. And right now, they have started identifying aggregators, anchors, and producers. And they are linking them up in the minimum level of production that there is happening before we get into the massive, production system. Now, what has happened in Kaduna State with respect to that farmer is you will not begin to see a rebound, maybe perhaps until the next 1 or 2 years. So, and that is the danger of allowing these things to happen. And that brings us to the beauty of when the president decided to create the Ministry of Livestock, and they now moved the Federal Department of Veterinary and Pest Control Services. We now kept the pest control services in the ministry, and that was what we upgraded to the Federal Department of Plant Health and Pest Control Services that Prof was talking about. And that department is now currently part of the One Health approach, because the One Health approach is now being expanded to include human health, animal health, plant health, and the environment. So we're not talking about a quadrante. Okay? So all of these things are being done to ensure that, for example, this same plant health department, they are currently working on a standard operating protocol that will mean at the beginning of the rainy season, we should know the nature, the standard disease situation as we are going into production, and during production, and then after production. If you have experts like Prof and his colleagues telling us the kind of disease conditions that the production cycle has, what do they call it? Then when we are beginning the next production cycle, we will be able to start producing, agrochemicals that will be able to take care of this. This is not happening before. So this is part of the reform that we are introducing. And very soon, we're talking about plant doctors program, which has been running in some other countries, and we need to bring the same here. And it's a very simple thing. Farmers will be able to see pictorial demonstration of things they are experiencing in their farms. And through that, the man who is an expert selling all of these, agrochemicals will be able to advise him on what to apply. And even integrated pest management, not necessarily putting, chemicals, because we are also concerned about residue. Remember, we are getting rejections, and we are concerned about that also. So there's quite a lot that is.
I would have asked you. I know we're about to take our short commercial break, but I would have loved to ask in terms of this mechanization. I mean, we've talked about mechanization and how you're deploying it. I'm just wondering the concern that have been raised, about the probability of, in the event of implementing this, you now widen the gap between, commercial farming and those who plant for subsistence.
The question to ask is that why must we continuously ask that people just plant only for subsistence? When you are talking about a country, you are talking about poverty.
They said this.
You see, it's the mindset, and we need to reorient ourselves. When you produce for yourself as a family, consider that you are producing commercially, because after all, if you don't produce, when you go to market, you go and pay. So it's an opportunity cost. And that is why I love what the First Lady did when she came with her Renewed Hope initiative on every home a garden, okay? And then the Young Farmers Club, and what did they call, which we have now all subsumed under the Urban Agriculture Program of the ministry. Now, what it means is that if you are buying, if your food bill has fruits and vegetables, maybe 100,000, and you are able to produce it effectively as it should, and you are able to meet your own demand, it means you have the quality product that even your neighbor can also patronize at a subsidized rate. Communities.
But every home a garden is targeting, you know, at least women, subsistence. At least have a garden that you can feed
when
from.
You say subsistence, I want you to remove that language.
You know,
because
that you can
why?
feed from yourself.
You know why? The orientation about subsistence farming is that you produce anyhow. But the orientation about commercial production is that in 1 hectare, if you are supposed to make 2 tons, you are able to do all things right to produce that 2 tons. That is the orientation, and that is what we are dealing with now. And we believe it's about knowledge, it's about investing in the knowledge of our farmers, and we are doing that also.
So in the end, you want everything to be commercial?
No, you see, what I'm saying is, remember, there's like an opportunity cost. If I'm able to produce effectively for myself, and I'm able to meet my own food demand, the cost I would have gone to the market with is now saved for other things. So how will you rate my poverty situation? I will no longer be in that situation where I'm battling to meet food costs, battling to meet medical costs and other things. Okay? So that is the point. And that if you are even eating right, you have lesser health challenges. That's why we are also talking about nutrition.
Okay.
When you talk about food security. So it's a lot of things.
All right.
And I believe in the, what we are talking about is food system transformation.
We'll take a break now, Honorable Minister, because we still have so many issues to talk about, the post-harvest losses, and also some of our guests, some of our viewers have sent in comments and questions which would like to read out, but we'll do that after this break. Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And our discussion is still on the food, agriculture and food security of this Tinubu's administration. We still have our guest, the Honorable Minister of State for Agriculture and Food Security is here, and likewise our other guests. But we have comments and questions from you, some of our viewers, which would like to read out now so that before we take other issues. Now, this is coming from, okay, the name is not here, but let me just read it. It said, "Good morning, Nigeria. I want to thank this administration for what they have done and are currently doing to bring down the cost of food for Nigerians. It's unfortunate the Nigerians have quickly forgotten how expensive food items like rice, beans, and so many others were before this administration came into power. Despite the blow of subsidy removal, I believe the government is on the right track and people should be patient." Question for the Honorable Minister. Sir, what is the government doing to bring down the cost of farm inputs? Agro products from northern Nigeria to sell in the south, from Kogi State through Edo, Delta, Bayelsa, to Rivers State. The level of extortion agent, we pay them 2,000 for each produce and receive a sticker. Even when you have the complete sticker, they will not let you go except you pay another 1,000. The security agencies collect 1,000 at any checkpoint, and you have more than 40 checkpoints between Kogi State and Rivers State. I think those are some of the challenges that Nigerians go through on the road. If Nigeria must survive, the level of extortion on highway needs to be reduced, because I'm not sure it can be stopped. Government should use the Anchor Borough scheme aggregation from Philip in Jos. This from Philip Jos. So this one is from Dan Maku Guru. He said, in the last 3 years, I lost 3 million naira to this ginger disease outbreak, but there was no form of compensation. This is discouraging. Honorable Minister.
Well, thank you very much. Maybe let me start from the last person. You see, agriculture, and that is the commercial orientation I was talking about earlier, that it is not just about saying, when you say commercial, it's saying that you should value what you have. If we look at agriculture, the level of risk in agriculture is high. And the National Agricultural Insurance Corporation, NAIC, was established to help farmers to mitigate some of these things, which means they have to take insurance. And the insurance scheme that NAIC runs is actually something subsidized. But our farmers are yet to key in the way it's supposed to be. And NAIC is doing its best to sensitize farmers through AFAM and other commodity producers. There's quite a lot of work that is going on to sensitize them into it. And when we have programs like the NACS AP, we are also ensuring that farmers are able to, see the need for insurance. And like the farmers here that we're talking about, if they had had insurance cover, for example, they would have been able to get some succor. But be that as it may, we recognize some of these challenges, and that was why the intervention that government made was to get them to get back on their feet, not to abandon them. And together with the Kaduna State government, something massive was done, and they're still being supported so that along that chain that I told you, we need to get them to get back into production. That is number one. That's
for Dan Machu.
Yes.
Dan, I hope I got his name right.
Yes.
So Dan, if you're listening,
so that is the point. But then to come back to the aspect of what did they call it? How to bring the cost of input down. Now, you see, the bulk of the input you talk about is fertilizer, for example. And fertilizer has an international supply chain link. And so right now there is a work being done. Remember, we used to have the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative, PFI. Now we are transiting from PFI into the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, now playing a role to see what is. I'm aware that on the basis of this transition, they've gone down. Why are we having this challenge? And it has to do with the level of supply of inputs. So they are working out a strategy in which, when they roll out beginning of this, production cycle, 2026, 2027, production cycle, they will be able to help farmers to bring down the, that is the blenders, to bring down the cost, because they are now importing the cost themselves to have it in country in a volume that they can guarantee the level of sustainability of the production. That is work in progress. And I believe with the support that the president has given, when we give out the part of the CBN fertilizer, a lot of these fertilizers are still available with the bulk of the producers. So there are people who are still having these fertilizers to use for production. But there are people.
But they say they cannot. Farmers say they cannot afford it.
Yes, those who do not have it. What is in the market?
They say they cannot afford it.
Yes, we know. We know. We are not the one producing. It's the market. So what we are saying is that we are working on a strategy to help do this, because you see, it's a year on, year out situation. Now we are also having discussions with the various producers of, urea, the Indorama, the Dangote, and the like, so that we can have a sustainable system. Now, this is in the works. And so I know what they want to see is right now as it is. But it is not a magic wand. But what we have said is that when we understand what the problem is, then we should put in place more practical, more sustainable path to exiting that kind of situation. And I think the Murphy, that is the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, that is handling this. We have every confidence that they will be able to do justice to it, to create a more sustainable path for it. But remember that the other link to the international market also exists, and that's why what they are doing is key. An individual businessman may not necessarily be able to meet all of these challenges. And in a way, Mr. President also has said, okay, there's no monopoly. And so some people have also been given the room to be able to intervene if they can. But remember, these things take time.
Okay, we have some more questions, and the time is fast. It's fast going. This is from Garko Karusite here in Abuja. He says, I have a question for the minister. Okay, let me start. He said in 3 years, the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security are doing well, but they should triple their efforts. And here is a question for the Honorable Minister. Why is it so difficult for the federal and state government to provide modern equipment for full mechanized farming, as the manual process is not sustainable? Fully mechanized farming, he says, will encourage the teeming youth to participate in food production to produce a lot of food for consumption and exportation. And the next comment is from Nandap, from Wiyeb from Jos. He says, the system analysis of the minister is not helping ordinary farmers, especially in the southwest of the country. How can you say that ordinary farmers should provide C of O of their farmland before they can be helped? The policy is just meant for the portfolio farmers, not practicing farmers. Tractors are hired at 35K per acre and 87K per hectare to plow, with chemicals to apply. Why are the tractors not in each local government area of the Federation? People are leaving farming businesses now because they are running at loss. He continues, what are the most effective ways to prevent soil erosion and degradation? That should be plant health. What are the best organic alternatives to synthetic fertilizers and pesticides? Thank you. Have a very good morning. God bless Nigeria, and God bless NTA.
The first thing to be said here
is
that...
sorry, Honorable Minister, there's the last one. I'm sorry. This is from Ebonyi State, Nana from Ebonyi State. And he said, good morning, Honorable Minister, and good morning, other guests. I have a rice mill in Ebonyi State with 5 milling machines, 3 de-stoning machines, 2 polishers, 1 boiler, and 1 dryer, 1 cleaning machine. How can the ministry partner with me to boost food production? Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you very much. I think the first thing to be said here is that the ministry has never said, go and produce C of O. I don't think we have said that anywhere. At any rate, states owns the land. They are the ones who will talk about. But one of the things we are saying is that to add value to what you are doing, if you have a C of O of your farm, then when you want to partner with financial institutions, the tenure of that land in terms of the production cycle is more guaranteed. And like I said, we have a problem with our data system. When you say you are a farmer, is the farm yours? If you are renting, who owns it? And all those things. These are the issues now that the national data system we are creating is going to help us to resolve. Okay? So that is to correct that impression. We never said so. But what we are saying is that AFAM and other producer organizations that are into agricultural production will help us to identify their farmers. And if you say you have a farm, we are working towards having a system where we can geo-reference your farm location. So that at the end of the day, whatever it is that we say we are doing, we are going to do that. The soil health scheme that we are doing is linking to the National Soil Information System, and that site is active now. All the places where we have gone to take sample, where we are able to say, okay, this is the status in terms of the health of your soil and the like, we are having it now, is geo-referenced and is online. Okay? So with that kind of situation, farmers will be able to get the kind of attention they need, because for us is to promote and support them to bring down the cost of production. You take one expensive fertilizer and you are applying it to the wrong crop in the wrong location. Some soil do not need the kind of fertilizer that our farmers are applying. This soil health scheme, for the first time, is going to help farmers to be able to do the right thing. That way they will be cutting down on cost, because if you produce at expensive, then you want the market to absorb it. And who are the people who will take it? The consumers. So we are aware of that. Now the other aspect, I think there was a question.
But how are you educating the farmers in this, because knowing the right fertilizer to use for a particular, soil matters.
You see, the scheme is going to work along with the state government and then the, local government areas. So we are working out all the strategy. And let me say this, the soil health scheme is a bottom-up approach. All our programs, we are mindful of doing a bottom-up approach, not to come from top. No, it has to be from bottom up. And that's why we are involving all producers at all levels. Now, the other aspect is, I think...
Nana from Ebonyi.
No, before Nana, I think one of the questions...
said, why are the tractors not in each local government area of the federation?
Yes, he's talking about that maybe we should reduce, we should do something more, total modern mechanization scheme.
Yes.
That is what this government is doing. When the president said we need to focus on food security, that vision has been bought into by all the 36 state of governors. And I must say that as at the last count, while the federal government has brought in the 2,000 tractors, the various state governments, as at the last count, had brought in more than 1,300 tractors. Niger State has more than 300. Okay, and they also have, just recently, he released 250 with 50 combined harvesters, which is what he's talking about. Remember, combined harvesters, they do one work, so it's not as if that one must match the number of, what did they call it, tractors. Beyond that also, even these hand tillers, power tillers, or what did they call it, all of those things are also being produced and made available through the various states. Just this year, early this year, we flagged out distribution of this small equipment to various commodity associations and cooperatives across the various states.
Wow.
These are all being done.
That's the Gariko.
And as for the man who is talking about having all of this,
yes.
When Prof was speaking earlier, he said we need to begin to look at, and I think also the AFAM person talked about it. You that you are a producer, you've done this massive investment. You need what? You need your stock to process. Farmers that are producing, they need ready market. So these are the kind of people we are encouraging to go into partnership with farmers that are producing, so that as they produce, they will be able to have a guaranteed processing line, that when the product comes out, it's more stable as far as storability is concerned. And we have seen that when we attended the National Council on Agriculture in Kaduna State, we've seen women that are now having meals, and they are working together with women who are into rice production. When they get their 10 bags, 20 bags, they come there, it is being milled and processed, bagged, and then the marketing is done collectively.
All right, okay.
Right.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. As we begin
begin
to wind up now, maybe just 1 minute before we now come back to the minister to wind up the conversation. Someone said that food sufficiency is the first currency of national stability. After 3 years, Athan, would you say that we are closer to stability or otherwise?
From what we have seen so far, we had, as of 2023, when this government came in, the price of a bag of maize was about 25,000. After the removal of subsidy, it went up to almost about 100,000. I'm using maize because it's for both animal and human. That was when the government felt there must be an intervention. And even we as farmers group, there's no way you can sustain 100,000 naira bag, 100,000 naira for maize. It's just insensitive. You cannot. So the government took some action, and the price came down. As I'm speaking to you now, the price is just about 25.30. So which means there's stability. But at what cost? I can say that the stability as of now is at the expense of the farmer. The policies have taken care of the consumers. The policies have taken care of our inflationary trend. We want inflation to be down. That has been achieved. But we need to take care of this one. And I'm happy the minister is here. And what needs to be done is very simple.
All right. Thank you. Prof.
Basically, we just want miracle. And if you want a miracle, you don't achieve anything.
Yeah.
The growth is a trajectory which in the last 3 years we are growing. What we need is to at least encourage to keep this drive. I believe that if in the next year when we come, the story about this development will. I'm really happy with what is happening with the curriculum and the ministry. From the discussion, we end up adopting a teaching and research farm, more or less like a teaching hospital. And with that, we produce young adults that will be interested in farming.
Okay. Honorable Minister, in few words, what must happen within the next 1 year for Nigerians to truly feel the impact? I mean, food prices are still high, hunger is still there, fertilizer is still high.
What must happen is that Nigerians, we must all go back to the farm. The rainy season is upon us. And one of the things I must say is this: we have fertile lands, and I'm happy. I just came back from home, and I drove almost 7-8 hours on the road, passing through more than 400 kilometers of road. And I must say that as I was going back, when I was going, what I saw on the road was just dry land. But as I'm coming, within 7 days, the level of agricultural activities I have seen in Niger State, my own state, is so massive and so encouraging. And so we must go back to land. But let me say this: the curriculum he talked about, which is one of the things we are driving together with the Minister of Education, Dr. Alausa, we are driving that, and we have, actually they told us they have something. We said no. What we have seen from the field is telling us otherwise. That's number one. And then the JAM admission portal tells us a different story. You know, a lot of young Nigerians are not even interested in agriculture. So that curriculum, when it is reviewed, is going to give farmers, young Nigerians, catching them young, the opportunity to go into massive agricultural production, because they can become sustainable millionaires and billionaires out of production. Let me say lastly,
yes,
we are driving a cooperative reform that will lead to the establishment of a cooperative bank for cooperators, so that they can have sustainable financing to go into massive production. And that's what President Bola Tinubu told our World Bank teams, so that they can have what we call economy of scale.
I have to add your distinguished Senator Dr. Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi, plus Honorable Minister of State, Agriculture and Food Security. Thank you as always. It's always a delight to listen to you, and well done for all the good works that you have done. Also, Professor Akim Abolade Oyerinde, Dean Faculty of Agriculture, University of Abuja. I hope you brought our honey for us. Yes, thank you. And then, of course, we have Engineer Shehu Bello, MNI, National Publicity Secretary of AFAN, All Farmers Association of Nigeria, former Director, Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. Thank you very much for the perspectives. And we want to say thank you to all of you from Karishi, Karu, to Jos, to Ebonyi, and to Southwest for sending in your messages. Please go online, go to YouTube if you want to listen to repeat broadcast, or you can join us at 5 o'clock later today for a repeat broadcast. I am Claire Adelabu Abdurrazak. Bye-bye.
And I'm Ademola Adio. Do have a lovely day.